A couple weeks ago, we did a video with Dr. Pepper barbecue ribs, and the video did great. You guys loved it. The recipe was delicious. So today we're gonna try a similar recipe, but this time with a bone and pork shoulder to make some delicious Dr. Pepper pulled pork. We're gonna start the process by getting our pork shoulder ready. So that's the ideal cut whenever you make pulled pork at home. So we've got our barbecue seasoning. I'm gonna use my all-purpose rub. We've got our Dr. Pepper, a little yellow mustard for the binder, an injector, because we're gonna inject this thing with the Dr. Pepper. So we'll see how that comes out. And then here is our protein. So this is about a 6-pound bone and pork shoulder. You can see the bone right there. Anytime you're doing pulled pork, try to cook bone and pork shoulders. They take a little bit longer to cook, but they come out super flavorful. They're nice and fatty inside. So let's get this thing prepped up. I'm gonna keep it in the packaging for now, and we're going to inject it with the Dr. Pepper. So when we did the ribs, we brined them in the Dr. Pepper for about 30-45 minutes. Since this is a nice big pork shoulder, we're not gonna do the brine, we're gonna do an injection. Anytime you're injecting meat, try to keep it in the packaging just to keep it a little bit cleaner, and it's kind of adding additional pressure on the protein to help keep as much of that injection in there as possible. We've got our delicious Dr. Pepper. Let's open this up, and then this pretty gnarly looking meat injector. It's basically a big syringe, got some big holes at the end. Let's load it up with our Dr. Pepper. Oh yeah, wow, look at that. That is not really working. That's just, that's not it. Let's try this one more time. I don't think it was tight enough. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, well that's not really working either. Let's try something different. Let's get this Dr. Pepper out into a bowl to try to get a lot of that carbonation out. I think that's what's causing the injector to get filled up with the bubbles instead of the Dr. Pepper. Let's try that one more time. There we go, it's a little better. See, filling up with the Dr. Pepper, or more Dr. Pepper than the bubbles. There we go. See, we figured it out. All right, so for the injection, we're just gonna go right in the meat and then just go in a couple different spots. You can see it getting filled up nicely. So again, the foil is keeping it a little bit cleaner, so not as much of it is going to spill out. Again, I'm not really sure if this will do anything while this thing is cooking, but we'll see. We're gonna figure out. The ribs turned out great. I hope that this will too. The whole idea behind injecting is that we're putting the flavor right inside the meat, right? So as we season the outside before it goes on the smoker, right, you'll get a lot of this barky flavor on the outside of the pork, but the inside, you know, doesn't really get any of that. So the injection is one good way to get that flavor in there. So normally you can do things like seasoned butter or whatever flavor profiler you're going for. Since we're doing the Dr. Pepper today, we're just gonna use this instead to keep it juicy, moist inside while it's cooking and get as much of that Dr. Pepper flavor in there as possible. It's an experiment. We'll see what happens. I really liked how the ribs turned out. I have high hopes for our Dr. Pepper pork. Pork shoulder is injected. I think that should be enough. I don't know. We'll see how it comes out. So next up, we're going to season it, and we're gonna let it sit while we fire up the grill. So I'm gonna take it out of the packaging here. So as you can see, this is about a 6-pound bone and pork shoulder, right? You can see the bone right there. I'm gonna leave the fat cap intact, and all I'm gonna do is just score the top. This is again kind of my go-to method whenever I make pulled pork. So just score in this kind of a cross pattern, making sure not to cut into the meat. We're just kind of scoring the fat cap, so as this thing is cooking, it's gonna open up, help it render out, plus it helps get more of the seasoning in there before. So now we'll go in the other direction, making this nice little diamond pattern. Next up, I'm gonna pat this thing dry, so let's just get all this liquid out of our pan. I'm gonna use a little yellow mustard for the binder. You can go with anything here really. You can go with some hot sauce, Worcestershire. This will just help the seasoning stick to the meat, so we'll go with a nice even layer on all sides of our pork. Gonna rub that on, get the sides. And for the rub, we're going with my all-purpose seasoning, which is absolutely perfect on barbecue, on things like pork, ribs, which turned out great earlier. We're gonna go with a nice heavy even layer and then just kind of pat that in. This is 6 pounds of meat, so it can take the seasoning, so don't be shy with it. This will help build up that nice bark on the outside, plus get all that flavor on our pork. That was our new puppy Jax. He's getting into trouble over there. Found something. Hey, Jax, what are you doing? Yeah, that's looking pretty nice. Just like that, nicely coated. Now I'm gonna let this thing hang out here while we fire up the grill. It's gonna start to kind of sweat out, start to absorb that seasoning. It's gonna take about 25 to 30 minutes to get the big green egg fired up, which is perfect for this thing to kind of rest, hang out before it gets on. For this cook, we're gonna be using the large big green egg. So let's get this guy ready. Take the grate out. As always, we've got some charcoal left over, so we kind of do our usual setup. We're gonna shake off any excess ash, and we're gonna top it off with some fresh lump. Dog is very excited too. To start, I've got my 2 starter cubes. It's kind of my go-to method I've been using for the last couple videos. They just go right in the coals. You know, get them fired up. Next, I'm gonna get the plate setter ready. So this is the ceramic plate that goes inside the big green egg to create this indirect cooking zone and make it more into a smoker. As you can see, it's got some crud on top from the last cook, so I'm just gonna scrape this right off. Oh, hey, Jax. I know you wanna eat this stuff, but it's probably not the best for you. Now the plate setter goes right on the big green egg. The grate goes right on top. I'm gonna get the big green egg up to about 250, 275 and put the pork on. It's going to take probably about 6 or 7 hours to get it fully cooked. You can also cook it at a lower temperature. It'll take a little bit longer. I find that the 250, 275 range, especially on the large big green egg, works ideal for those pork shoulders. Check our pork out. So it's been sitting in the seasoning for about 30 minutes or so. Got nice and wet and sticky. Big green egg's cruising right about 250 degrees, so we're gonna put our pork shoulder on. So I'm going fat cap up, so the part that we scored goes right on the grate, right on the center, just like so. We're gonna close the lid and let this guy cook. Now I'm gonna leave it on the grill untouched until it hits about 170 internal. After it hits 170 internal, we're gonna go to the second stage where we wrap it up in foil. We'll add more Dr. Pepper in that part as well, but for now I'm just gonna leave it, let it cook, and I will be back on it later. So I lied about not doing anything with the pork. It's been on for about an hour, and I figure, you know what, we're gonna give it a spritz with our Dr. Pepper. So I've got a spray bottle. We'll pour some of our Dr. Pepper right here inside, and I figure I'm gonna spritz it every hour or so just to keep the outside nice and wet and continue building on the Dr. Pepper flavor. Let's take a look at our shoulder. Ooh, that is looking really nice. So you can see how the top, that fat cap, is opening up because we scored it. Let's give it a little spray. Oh yeah, it's smelling really good, by the way. You can smell the Dr. Pepper, the smokiness, the rub. All right, that should be good. We'll come back in about another hour, give another spritz, and continue on. While the pork is on, we're gonna get started on our Dr. Pepper barbecue sauce. So I'm gonna do the same recipe as we did with the ribs. We've got some ketchup, some red wine vinegar, a little Worcestershire, of course Dr. Pepper, and brown sugar. I'm also gonna add my all-purpose seasoning. Super easy recipe, and that sauce was really good on the ribs, so it should be pretty tasty on the pork shoulder as well. We're gonna go with ketchup first, so about a quarter cup or so. We'll add the brown sugar. This will help the sauce thicken up. We also have some molasses. This will give it that nice saucy taste, so about a tablespoon or two. Again, you don't have to be exact. It's still gonna come out delicious. A couple dashes of Worcestershire. I've got red wine vinegar. You can also use apple cider vinegar. Give it a little bit of the tanginess. Plenty of Dr. Pepper. So I'm gonna go with about a half a can or 3/4 of a can. I'm gonna put this on the stove inside and then just cook this down, let it reduce a little bit, get nice and sticky, but I wanted to get a lot of the Dr. Pepper flavors. Forgot the most important thing. Gotta add a little barbecue seasoning, so I'm going with my all-purpose rub. Anytime you make a barbecue sauce, you have to season it up just like you're cooking meats or anything else. Kind of really helps bring all the flavors out. So we're gonna go over medium heat. This will take about 20-25 minutes. You just wanna kind of whisk it every few minutes, make sure nothing burns, and then just cook until it reduces probably by about half or so, thickens up nicely, and it's gonna be perfect for our pulled pork. It's been about 5 hours. Our pork just hit about 165, 170 internal. See, this fat is getting nice and soft, nice color on the outside. This bone is starting to peek out a little bit more. Now we're gonna move on to the second stage of our cook. So I'm gonna remove this from the big green egg. Again, this guy wasn't super big, so it's cooking a little bit quicker than a bigger pork shoulder. Gonna remove this from the egg. Okay, move this out of the way. Oh yeah, look at that. We're gonna do something similar that we did with the ribs when we cooked those. So this is going in a foil pan, and we're gonna add a couple pats of butter to give it a little richness. We're gonna add more Dr. Pepper, about a half a can. That was in a half a can. Let's add a little bit more. The idea now is, as this is cooking in the foil pan, this Dr. Pepper will provide additional moisture and flavor. We'll add a little bit more brown sugar. There we go. And finally, we're gonna add some more of my all-purpose rub. And that is looking really nice. Gonna cover this whole thing up with foil. Make sure it's nice and tight. Okay, you want to keep all that steam, all those juices in there as this thing is cooking. We're gonna put this back on the grill, same temperature, the 250, 275 range, and now we're gonna continue cooking this until it hits about 200, 204 internal. It's gonna be probe tender, and then it's gonna be ready to shred. All right, our pork is finished. So let me show you guys how I know that it's done and what to look for when you're doing this at home yourself. Ooh. Oh yeah, look at that. So as I mentioned before, you want to take it in the foil to an internal temperature of about 200, 204, or until it's probe tender, meaning this probe goes in without any resistance, like a hot knife into butter. It's temping. You can see, I'm not sure if you can see or not, right around the 200-degree mark. You can see this fat still kind of bubbling right here on top. Here, check this out. Look at this. It is just pillowy and soft. You get all these liquids in there. It's all the juices out of the pork or Dr. Pepper. So this thing is done. But now I know you really want to kind of dig into this, shred it and eat it, but we have to give it a rest. Just like any meat that we cook, steak, chicken, whatever, especially with barbecue, with these larger cuts, we're gonna let it cool down. I'm gonna leave the foil off for a couple minutes, let some of this steam escape so it doesn't continue cooking. Then I'm gonna put the foil back on, bring this inside, put it in my oven that's turned off, and let this thing rest for a good hour. So that's gonna allow all the juices inside to redistribute. It's gonna cool down a little bit more, and then we'll finally be able to shred it. All right, so it's been a good hour. This thing was in the oven resting, so now it's time to shred it up. It's still pretty hot, so I'm gonna use some glove liners. I've got two different ones that are basically just fabric gloves, and I use this for heat protection. You can also use a pair of forks to help you shred it, or those kind of grilling claws, but I find that this works the best. All right, let's go for it. Ooh. She is a beaut. Okay, so first things first, we got to get the bone out. So this should come out nice and easily. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh boy. Oh yeah. Oh, it was big on this side. Oh, look at that. Nice and clean bone pull. This is kind of what you're looking for. And now one of my favorite parts of making pulled pork is to kind of just shred this up. So you just kind of go right for it or kind of savor it and go in little pieces. But check this out. Oh man, look at this. The meat just pulls right apart. You can see the nice smoke ring on there. It is juicy, tender. As you can see, I'm shredding this in the foil pan with all the liquids because I like to mix it all together. So now, as you're shredding it and you see some of these bigger fatty pieces, like harder fatty pieces that are, you know, not really that edible, like this stuff, you can just take it out and toss it out. It smells really nice, has that nice sweet smell to it, little smokiness. So all this meat, look at all this meat, this was $25, I think. Yeah, around $30, I think. You get all this meat, plenty of leftovers, and it's, again, super easy to make. I mean, it takes a couple hours, but the process itself is very simple. And it's really hard to mess this up because it's pork, it's very forgiving, it's very fatty. You can see all the fat that's in here, so it's hard to really mess this up. Little barky piece, little juicy, little fatty. Oh wow, that is really good. It has that really nice sweetness to it. Can definitely taste the Dr. Pepper. Little spiciness, little peppery, that's from the barbecue rub. Nice little mild smoky flavor. This is perfect. I like when my pork has that nice mix of kind of sweet and savory and peppery. Pork is all shredded up, so now I like to mix it with all these juices in the pan, and look at this. Look how amazing this pulled pork looks. Smoky, barky, super juicy. Doesn't even need any barbecue sauce to make a delicious pulled pork sandwich, but we made one anyway, so we're gonna use it. Okay, so let's make our sandwiches. Move this out of the way. We've got our sauce. You can see how nice this looks. I'm gonna keep it super classy. I've got a paper plate for our sandwich. For the buns, I like using brioche buns, kind of very soft, buttery, and perfect for these sandwiches. Okay, so we've got our buns. As you can see, they are nice and soft, so we're gonna keep it exactly like that. Now we'll take a handful of our delicious pork and we'll just go right on top. I don't like putting too much pork on my pulled pork sandwich because then when you kind of grab it, you bite it, it all just falls out anyway. Seems like a good layer. Now let's take our sauce and we'll just go right from the pan right on the sandwich. Oh yeah. And there we go. A Dr. Pepper pulled pork sandwich. Let's give this thing a try because it's been a long day cooking this beautiful pork shoulder, waiting, making the sauce, but just wow. All right, here we go. I didn't think it needed the sauce, but that extra sweetness from that barbecue sauce, the Dr. Pepper sauce, just really brings it all together. This is really good. You get the sweetness of the Dr. Pepper, the peppery barbecue rub, the smokiness, savory pork, it's super tender, that nice buttery soft bun. This is perfect. Definitely a winner, and definitely we're following up the Dr. Pepper barbecue ribs. Might have to do more of these Dr. Pepper proteins because so far both of them have been absolutely delicious. That's gonna be pretty much it for this video. If you guys like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you think or what else you want to see me cook, and I'll just hang out here and finish eating my delicious Dr. Pepper pulled pork